Okay, I think yeah, no, we're live. We're live. Sabah, everybody. Welcome back. I am in Hawaii, and I had to close this because there's a lot of light and, of course, a lot of rain going on this weekend. Just, for the show, why not? We'll bring some rain over to Hawaii, and they're actually expecting snow here for some reason. But I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great beginning of the weekend. It has been a very busy week for me. I've been covering the Snapdragon Summit. The brand new Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 was announced. The brand new Snapdragon G3X was also announced. And the brand new 8CX Gen 3 was also announced. Three different mobile platforms that Qualcomm is trying to make sure that they're not only in, but they're also leading. So we're going to talk about that, and I'll be able to hopefully answer most of your questions. I will say this, I've already gone through benchmarking and looking at some of the performances that we can expect from the 8 Gen 1. Unfortunately, I won't be able to answer many of the questions in there. We'll see what, depending on the questions. But the information on that should be coming out very soon on the channel, so make sure if you have not checked it out, make sure to check that out there. I see there's a lot of people already with us in the chat. I want to say good morning. Sabaho, hope you're doing well. Regardless of where you are in the world, I'm just hoping you're doing well. Also, as a little bit of a side note, this is going to be the last podcast as with the title, The Saturday Morning with Tech. Starting next week, as you guys know already, we're going to be changing it over to the Android Bay. And also we're going to be changing the house or the home of this podcast over to the Android Bay channel, which is linked in the show notes below if you're on the YouTube channel. If you haven't seen the tweet yet, I would love it if you're able to subscribe there. I'll still be posting information about it on the main channel so people know to kind of know where the podcast is going to be. But it is going to be home at that channel, and we're trying to get it over 100 followers so that we're able to actually get the name, the Android Bay. Right now, the episode, or at least the channel name, still shows more of the code that YouTube assigns to a channel till it reaches 100 subscribers. So I would really appreciate it if you're able to at least show some love for the Android Bay, and we can get that off the ground. And it's going to be the home of the podcast, so it's definitely going to be a permanent place where we're going to be able to meet up and talk every Saturday. And actually, that comes back to it. We may be able to also move the podcast sometimes, depending on when we need it to show up. Now that it's no longer attached to the Saturday morning. But again, that's going to be the going forward approach. I see we have a lot of people hanging out with us already. Greg, good morning. Thank you very much for being the first in the chat. I see George Brown, good morning. Hope you're doing well. Dominic Wong, hey man, I'm hoping you're having better weather than me. I know a lot of people came from the UK to the Tech Summit and they were like enjoying the weather, but I think the moment the Tech Summit ended, I think Thursday night was like the last part of it, and then Friday everybody was starting to go. Of course, the rain came and everything just went there. I am wearing the Snapdragon, hopefully you guys can see it, the Extreme Mobile Computing. This is the 8CX. They handed out some of those shirts. I could not find my Dragon Ball shirt. I was hoping to find that, but I'm sure we'll be able to get that there. I see Chemi's in the chat. Haydar is in there. Amen. Slabaho, ahlan wa sahlan. Hope you're doing well. And I want to say, Sarvan's in there. Okay, Dominic Wan in there. Again, Manny Acosta's in there. And I think I saw some, hold on, let me see here. Oh, Abdul Isa, Sabaho, ahlan wa sahlan, Abdul. Adel, yeah, Adel Isa. Okay, so let's start looking at quick questions here. Hey TK, the channel is not enabled with Super Chat. Yes, so unfortunately, because we are starting, just for a little bit of a background, you guys remember maybe about a couple of months ago, I was starting to kind of put out a little bit of YouTube shorts where food-related thing. It was the channel I started there. Unfortunately, that channel, I never was able to kind of consistently work at putting content on that channel, and I ended up basically rebranding it. So part of that is the fact that the channel itself needs a little bit more love and attention so that we're able to start getting kind of the support that we're able to do on the main channel. Right now, we're broadcasting on both Android Bay, my channel, TK Bay, as well as the Twitch channel, which is typically what I normally do. And I think at some point I'm going to have to find a good medium of how to, I guess, support it, and hopefully we'll be able to do things normally there as we usually do. Let me see here. Okay, so yeah, just for reference, I think, where's Dominic? So that was Dominic's question. Actually, I do like the bubbles. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think of the overlays that we have right there. They look nice. Chemi's in there in the morning. Hey, Greg, how you doing? Dominic going in. Let me see here. Hey, George, doing well? Hope you're doing well. Okay, so Zen Photography said that he canceled his the Xperia Pro I order because of the Snapdragon announcement. So here's the concern, or here's at least some of the challenges that we're looking into. the Snapdragon, or the 8 Gen 1 was just announced, right? So typically what we'll see is more than likely the Xperia 1 Mark IV will be the first one to showcase the new SoC. So if Sony continues with their same architecture or the same way we've seen it in the past, we'll get the announcement somewhere in March. The phone will come out in mid-July. So as long as you're able to wait that long for a next-gen version of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 on an Xperia 1 Mark IV, yeah, that would be the Mark IV, then I think that you're perfectly fine. The Pro series, more than likely, even if it does come out earlier, may not actually showcase the new SoC, because keep in mind the development cycle of a phone, it takes a little bit longer than when the actual SoC is announced. So we'll have to see how that goes if you want to end up going with, let's say, the Xperia Pro 2 or Pro II, since technically we had a Pro I that is not a direct successor to the Pro, because that's more of the imaging side. We'll have to see. But yeah, I'll be interested to see if Sony applies the triple ISP recording capabilities. So not just better image processing, or at least better, the 18-bit from 14-bit upgrade, but also the ability of recording all three sensors at the same time. That actually could be a very good creative way for creating content, B-roll, and so on. Just having three different perspectives running at the same time on the same phone. So, but yeah, if you don't feel like the Pro I is the right way, I think definitely going the 1 Mark IV. I would also I would probably say that you want to keep in mind that the Pro I did get a chance to play around with. What's it called? Michael Fisher had a Pro I with the entire kit here while we were at the summit, and I had a chance to play around with it a little bit. I tried taking the display from the back of the Pro I to put it on top of the Xperia 1 Mark III, or yeah, the 1 Mark III that I have. And unfortunately, the display would not work, even though I had Video Pro loaded already on my device. There is actually somehow more of an embedded firmware configuration where it notices the display and automatically asks me, do I want to use it? So keep in mind, if those things appeal to you with the Pro I, that's not coming over to the 1 Mark IV. So we need to kind of see how some of those things that we want to get. But I understand, yeah, the 8 Gen 1 definitely showcases some benefits that we don't have with the 888. And my hope is that we're able to get a good experience of it depending on the flavors that we look at. So Sony, Samsung, whatever. So we'll have to see how that goes. Also, just for reference, if you guys can let me know in the comments, do I sound okay? Because I did not get a chance to test out the sound on this. But at least from Thursday's show with Juan and Josh, I think it sounded okay. But I would be happy if you guys can show me or let me know. Let me see. الله هيدر الله يخليك الله يخليك منور انت منور الله يخلينا هيك الله يخلينا هيك. Haidar was saying basically, you look really good and the show's going well. So I'm, obviously making sure everybody's happy. Okay, so Sarvan had a quick question here. So Sabah Hatike, share your thoughts on the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Is this an M1 kind of a big bump for the Snapdragon? Honestly, this is going to be, from what we've heard so far, it is an improvement over the 888. Absolutely. One thing they also kind of keep it as a side note, this is obviously an incremental upgrade. This is going to be something for people that are already running on the 865 or maybe something earlier than the 850. I don't think this is intended for most people using the 888 because, again, that SoC just literally came out about a year ago. Some of the improvements in the photography, or at least in some of the modem configurations that we're looking in here, are obviously going to be big benefits to creators. Because for me, one thing is, especially with millimeter wave and fast connectivity with the X65 that they're going to be built in here, is the ability of having faster upload speeds, and that's built in natively to the modem, as opposed to just fast download, which is great for content consumption. I don't disagree with it, but the big part of what we're doing right now, as I'm sharing with you guys and I'm streaming to you, we're uploading, we're not downloading, and that number typically is much slower and much smaller for most of us. On the go, not a big issue. For creators, it could be a big issue to keep or maintain a good stream going on. So for me, those improvements, as well as the ISP configurations that we saw in there, and I'm specifically talking to the triple ISP at 18-bit with triple recording streams at the same time. There were other features that they announced that I feel like, to a certain point, like we've had versions of them before, right? Like the motion blur functionality. I think we've seen even it's software enabled on certain applications or editing software, you could be able to actually generate some of the images like that. The ability of shooting ultra wide, obviously most of us can with a camera adapter. Some of those things I feel like they're more focusing on bringing these features to the masses, meaning to more companies that typically don't have these features in them. But the flagships or the higher end models, we've had these features for some time. The other thing is also video bokeh. If I'm not mistaken, I think Huawei has been doing that for years. Honor's been using it as well. Honor and bokeh, and Huawei have also done, I think, this feature where it enables to not only bokeh the video itself, but also sorry, what do they call it? Allow the subject to be colored and everything behind us become basically blurred and basically a vignette. It's like a black and white. And that's something that we've seen in the past. But again, now it's natively built into the Snapdragon ecosystem with the 8 Gen 1. So I'm excited to see what they offer. I want to see how it applies to devices, because the phones that we got a chance to play around with were reference devices. The concern there is that these are not true representation of how these devices are going to work in the real world. So even when I do end up sharing with you guys the content as far as the benchmarking and so on, we want to keep that in mind. I was benchmarking, or I was doing my tests on a reference device, not on a production device, meaning it's not a phone from Samsung, right? Or Xiaomi or something, whomever decides to announce their first device first. So at the end of the day, those are the things we want to keep in mind. And all of the features that they showed us are basically the entire list or the gamut of functions that they offer on this new system, obviously after going to 4 nanometers from 5. But it's going to end up becoming maybe something where the OEMs, what will they use and what will they not use, and what would they enable and not enable. So those are some of the functionalities. One of the other things is, as far as security, if you probably heard it or even heard it from somebody, essentially they're talking about also in always on, or somewhere like a security feature on the front-facing camera to allow you to know if somebody's snooping over your shoulder or somebody looking over your content. And those are some of the things that you can also benefit from, but how many companies or how many OEMs are going to turn that on? So I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do. At its core, at its basically just based information and everything that we saw, it looks amazing. Unfortunately, Qualcomm did not give us one device that had everything turned on. We had units specifically designed to work and showcase certain features. So if I wanted to check out the video bokeh was one phone. If I wanted to check out the on-device better AI audio recognition and better search functionalities, that was also separately done on a different device, as well as the Snapdragon sound and all of that other stuff. So we'll have to see. Sorry, it was a little bit of a long answer, but there was a lot to talk about. But speaking of Snapdragon sound, that was the other big part that I was really happy to see. A focus from Qualcomm on Snapdragon on audio. And this is typically the one subject that typically most OEMs just don't talk about. They skip, because audio for them is essentially just a process that's built into the SoC, but never something that they wanted to showcase. This year, we saw in the beginning of 2021 Snapdragon Sound announcement. We saw that the Insider phone was one of the first devices to support it, as well as the Xiaomi Mi 11 Ultra. That was another phone that had that as well. And now we're going to notice that the G3X, the 8CX, and the 8 Gen 1 are all dedicated to have Snapdragon Sound built in. Again, depending on the OEM, we may get some features and we may not. One of the ones I really was excited to see was lossless audio at CD quality. So that's 16-bit with 44 kilohertz with lossless capabilities over Bluetooth, and that's traditional Bluetooth. Audio has always been a big thing, as you guys know. Juan Carlos and myself always, are proponents of better audio and basically taking care of your ears, enjoying the music that you want to listen to, but not having to blast it to the point where you have to just to get some experience or good experience out of it. So my hope is that, again, 2022, we'll start seeing new generation of buds. And I'm not talking specifically just the Liberties. Like the Liberties 3 Pros are still one of my favorites, and I still think they perform much better than some of the other options on the market. Again, 32-bit at 96 kilohertz, it's crazy good on these options. But again, having it natively built into the SoC makes it so that we can have more functional options from devices when we get them later on in the year. If you're picking up a new Snapdragon Gen 8, or Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Now, Qualcomm didn't talk anything about the 7. I guess I'm assuming it's going to be, so if the first one is Snapdragon 8, so the 7 will be Snapdragon 7, and then there's a 6 series, the 4 series, all of the different ones more than likely will be following the same architecture. And I think that's the biggest thing we want to be able to kind of follow. How will they do on those ecosystems, the one that sell the most? Samsung sells more mid-rangers with an A series device, and those are typically running the mid-range processors than their flagships. So again, I'm looking forward to hearing more about that from Qualcomm. That again, the conversation started around the 8. It needs to continue. And I'm pretty sure I'm like 6,000 messages behind. So let's see here. Let me go here real quick. Thank you for the question, by the way, Sarvan. I really, that was a good kickoff for the conversation there. Yeah, so hopefully, yeah, definitely. So Zen Fatak, we're looking forward to your informative input from this announcement. There's a lot of things to unravel, and I feel like even the podcast could maybe not be enough time for us to kind of cover every piece. I will say this though, the benchmarking session video that's going to be coming out hopefully soon, There's a little bit of insight there that I feel like you guys would enjoy. Unfortunately, I'm under embargo and I cannot speak to that information, but I can say that some of the things that we've talked about in the past, I definitely have, I should be able to answer some of those questions that we've talked about and some of the things we were looking forward to finding out about the new SoC. So that's going to be exciting, and make sure you guys, actually next Saturday's show will more than likely have that as the main subject, but I'm hoping to have that video out before then. Let me see here. Manny Acosta's in there. Marilyn, hey Marilyn, hope you're doing well. Haven't seen you for a couple of weeks now. And thank you for subscribing to the new channel. I appreciate it. Like I said, my biggest goal right now on that channel literally is to cross 100 subscribers, purely so that I can get the channel title, address to be literally just at youtube.com/theandroidbay. It's not taken, and I think the closest one that I saw was the Android Day, but we'll see. So we'll go with B over D. And I'm not going to say that. I'm going to keep working on. George, the Xperia 1 Mark IV with Gen 1, please Sony, absolutely. And I think that's really the right approach. The way though, if we've just follow what Sony keeps doing every year, I feel like we're not going to see this till at least June, July-ish of the summer of next year, of 2022. But the announcement is going to be done somewhere around March, April, or so on. And I think that's typical to what we see normally. It's going to happen. We know it's going to happen. We want to see some of the improvements. I want to see some of the Pro I functionalities brought over to the 1 Mark IV. But again, since it's so early now, it's hard for us to even tell. I am waiting for Android 12 to come out on the Xperia 1 Mark III, and I've been really enjoying the 1 Mark III, especially with the 4 camera options on it here in Hawaii and so on. So it's definitely very nice to have that much power on your device. I just wanted that display from the Pro I to work on it, and there was no luck there. I tried. But I still have one on pre-order, so we'll have to see. Laverne, good morning. Hey, man, hope you're doing well. Oops, sorry, here you go. I hope you're doing well. Jimmy Fire Dragon, oh, yeah, okay, yes. So they're talking about some of the weather going on. Yeah, no, guys, Hawaii is expecting 12 inches of snow at the top, right? Not at the base where I am. But yeah, definitely going to be something where it's very funny. Like, yeah, saying Hawaii and snow, I don't know if that's a conversation we've ever had. I'm hoping, hopefully we'll be able to do it as well. Oh, Gary the Fireman, good morning. Hope you're doing well, Gary. Hope you're doing great. I see here, okay, so, okay. Sarvan is actually, can Android OEM really make use of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, what it's capable of? The reality is yes. Again, the way I've seen it in the past, Qualcomm approach to SoCs is very much a customizable experience, but not customizable like the way MediaTek does it, right? So they don't generate a new version of the SoC and then they have a moniker put next to it to specify, like the Dimensity 1200 AI for OnePlus on the Nord 2, or even the Vivo one. Qualcomm does it in the sense of look, this is our list of features, this is all of the capabilities this specific SoC can do. What would you like, and what would you like to be able to get? That basically get dictated by what features they want to include, what features they don't want to include. Like I said, the triple ISP, that's going to be more of a native functionality, but the capability of turning it on to record 3 videos at the same time, that may be something that a company doesn't go with. It's a great feature to add. I think it's an opportunity for them to showcase the power. But the example would also be like, if you've ever gotten a phone, let's say from India, from Europe, or even from the US, and you notice that when you use it in another market, it doesn't work the exact same way, right? We know that the Snapdragon 888 had the capabilities with the X60 modem that they have to have an unlocked band capability, meaning they can connect to 5G, 4G, and millimeter wave across the world. And that was what the Insider phone was able to do that no other phone can do in 2021. And that's because of the way the OEMs approach it. They don't want to provide you a phone that works everywhere. They typically provide a phone that works in your market. So it's a targeted market so that you don't go and buy a phone from a different market that may have different features and bring it over. There's very much a big approach to marketing or market targeting with companies. Same thing with Qualcomm. They do the exact same thing. They feed that experience to the OEMs, and they allow the OEMs to provide us the best experience. Samsung does it to everybody. If you guys remember, Exynos exists outside of the US. We have Qualcomm chipsets in the US. We also have something called Good Lock on Samsung devices that only exist in the US and Europe, but then the Middle East and Asia can't download this app because it doesn't support their devices. Again, those are things that we typically get, and even if you buy an unlocked smartphone from Samsung, you're still region locked to where you bought that the phone from. So if I buy an unlocked US phone, I'm not going to get the same experience if I go over to Asia or if I go over to Europe, vice versa if I bring something in from another place. So we're going to have to see what they do. My hope is that it's going to be a better experience, but we know and we've seen it before that it's going to be a tailored experience based on the OEM that you're working with. But this is definitely the flagship. Keep in mind, this is the best of the best that Qualcomm has to offer, and that's what they're kicking it off with. So we're still going to be hearing more later on about their mid-rangers, their budget, their entry-level SoCs. And if you notice, they dropped the 5G function now. They're no longer talking 5G because they brought 5G across many of their lines. So now it's more of an implied that it is 5G enabled, and we're no longer trying to just sell a phone based on the fact that it has the word 5G on it. So we'll see. I love that. I love that question. Thank you very much. Let me see here. Hey, Matt Tyler's in there. Okay, good morning, Matt. I mean, good afternoon, Matt. Hope you're doing well. Sorry I wasn't able to jump in on any of the games this week. This week has been kind of crazy, and I'm also not running with my gaming system. So even if I did join, it would have been a miserable game because I would be running it on my PC. Basically, this is my production PC, so not very good on specs there. I appreciate it, Dan. Ooh, dude, Dan is in the chat as well. Grounded Tech, everybody say hi. So Dan's hanging out with us as well. Let me see here. Okay, so Adelaisa saying is, do you think, sorry, what do you think? What Snapdragon will bring, or what company will bring implement these capabilities? Okay, so this is kind of a little bit more like what we saw before. Honestly, I'll say this. I think Samsung more than likely, if they stick with the Qualcomm SoC, and I say if, there was that conversation that we had on Thursday with Juan and Josh, if you remember, during the announcement, or the initial announcement of Qualcomm, the Qualcomm announcement that was pushed out for the announcement of the 8 Gen 1, Samsung was absent from the list of companies saying that they would be supporting it. Now, we heard that there was other discussions going on as to why Samsung was not part of the list, and Qualcomm basically said, no, we're still working with them. It's not that it's not there. But it brings a little bit of question as to, is it possibly the year where Samsung decides to take Exynos to the next level? If you remember, at least in the US market for us, we typically don't get Exynos SoCs, but there was one year where Samsung decided to bring the Exynos chipset to a Note, and that was the 1 year that we got to experience it. But ever since then, we've been back to Qualcomm, and they've been sticking with Qualcomm for quite some time. This year, we saw Tensor. So Tensor is a collaboration between Google and Samsung, and that was the experience that we got there. Now, we still are expecting a new Exynos version. And the biggest thing there is that would that possibly be the year where Samsung decides to separate themselves and say, look, we're going to go Exynos on everything we release, and it's going to be the experience we're going to go. Qualcomm is rumored to also be, not Qualcomm, Oppo is also rumored to come up with their own SoC. And if that starts happening, we're going to start seeing a custom silicon made by every company that makes a phone. There's a couple of things there. It's great for innovation because we're going to get more competition. But at the end of the day, we're going to get, basically the same issue we had with Android to start with. It's the fact that it's delineated over so many systems that it's hard for developers to support. Even though it's the same operating system, it's not easy for them to support multiple devices with different configuration, different display resolutions, different camera setup, different SoC, clock speed, a whole bunch of different things being there. And now if you have OEMs creating their own SoCs for every single company, you're going to start seeing some different experiences, and you're going to start needing to kind of basically maybe even more, either not saying married, but dedicated to one brand. So we'll have to see. Tensor definitely has a lot of promise. It's not a perfect ecosystem, but it offers us everything that we want from Google. Exynos has always been focused on Samsung, but again, for us in the US, we haven't really had a lot of experience with them. And the last couple of years of concerns with people using Exynos SoCs have kind of showcased that Exynos is not ready to game. It used to be that was the case, but we're not there yet. So, and I also want to see what would Oppo do, and what architecture would they basically go off of. I'm assuming they're going to go with the Cortex X2 if they're going to come up with something, if they stick with ARM. But how do they configure it? How do they change it? How does it become, Oppo as opposed to just something rebranded? So we'll have to see. Also, to my understanding, I think Oppo's innovation has been greatly done on the hardware, on the configurations, the design, and bringing in new tech. But they haven't really focused as much on SoC development. So we'll have to see how that goes. Yes. I appreciate that. Let me see. It sounds fine. Thank you very much. I am okay, 8:44 and it is 9. Okay, I am 16 minutes late on the questions. Okay, let's see if we can skip through. Slightly off topic, what happened to the Qualcomm 3D Sonic Max ultrasonic fingerprint reader? So the announcement was there, and they did say that it does support it, the 8 Gen 1, but we didn't see any demos or any units equipped with it. All the demo units that we had did have a fingerprint sensor built in, but it was all disabled at a software level. And the only thing I can think of essentially is just wasn't ready to show us, and they didn't want to showcase something that wasn't ready. 2 years ago in 2019, we saw a demo of the new fingerprint sensor, and then we saw that Samsung pushed it out 2 years later on their S21 Ultra. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that if that comes up, and you know, we'll see how that goes. But thank you, Sir Bifius. Chemi, hold on, let me see here. Having video degree directly in SoC. Yeah, oh, Leica algorithm, absolutely. Their new partnership with Leica, the partnership with Sony. They're still obviously working with Google. Google was on the stage as well. There was a lot of, it's a very different approach. I think what Qualcomm looks at it is this. Google's venture into their own SoC is really only for Pixels, right? We're not looking at an SoC that's going to be coming up on any other device other than a Google-owned Pixel device. So at the end of the day, Qualcomm is pretty much still married to the relationship of Android across a lot of OEMs, a lot of devices, and everything on the market. So it is something to keep in mind, that the fact that Google is trying to focus more on AI and focusing on all their services. And I think that's something that you would expect from Google to do at this stage. After so many generations of Pixel, they need to start being able to control the entire story from start to end, the same way Apple does. Samsung did that a little bit at some point, and of course we've seen some successes at the beginning with Exynos. And now at least we're seeing that Qualcomm is not forgetting the fact that they're literally still working with so many more OEMs and more companies. Their relationship with Verizon for millimeter wave support, as well as AT&T, is definitely very strong. Both companies had some representation at the summit. So we're not missing a lot, but it's the biggest thing that we want to see essentially is improvements. We want to see competition. We want to be able to push the limits, but also make sure that we're not forgetting about power draw, power management, and of course overall architecture and benefit for the user. You know, we are getting to the point where I think we've surpassed the power requirements, or at least, you know, clock speed requirements for most of our devices. If you notice, they're all hovering around the 3 gigahertz, but we're changing architecture, so smaller nanometers, more dense, and of course the ability to be able to use less power. Those are going to be some of the things we see. But yeah, let me see here. Hope the Realme GT2 uses the Gen Y design. So this is an interesting one from the Nexus 6P. So Realme is, so I'll be interested to see that. Okay, so Realme has been releasing a few devices right now, showcasing some of the brand new flagship SoCs, right? Like the Realme GT definitely was an 888, very budget friendly price. Came later in the year when the 888 Plus was coming out. So I'm really interested to see if Realme and not Realme, but like Realme, Redmi, and some of the other, not necessarily like, you know, Xiaomi and Oppo kind of experiences would start using these SoCs at the beginning part, or do they end up doing what they typically do, is when the price of the SoC drops a little bit, becomes more cost effective so that they can keep their prices a little bit lower. Remember, Realme is not, Realme and like other sub-brands are typically more known to be more price and cost effective. You know, like Poco, I would love to see this on a Poco for sure, like one of their best Pocos to come out. So it's going to be something that we'll see how 2022 kind of pushes us with that one. Atana says that, hey, do you think Honor is going to be to give the same experience like Huawei in its best years as software points? Right now, Honor is still figuring out what they're doing. Mind you, Honor was on that list of devices that are going to be supporting the 8 Gen 1. So we are going to see some of those devices powered by that. When it comes down to software support, as time goes on, it's going to need to be part of their biggest focus. I think that's the biggest thing. Being that they're separating themselves, they're being more, I guess, with GMS again. The Honor 50, I think, was a great showcase. They're coming up with more devices, as we're going to see. Is it going to get up to the point where it becomes to that same level? I don't think they're trying to compete with Huawei in that sense. They just need to be consistent in their update software, methodology or approach. I think that's what my hope is. I'll make sure that the next time I have a chance to talk to one of the Honor representatives, that I'll make sure to convey that message and make sure that they understand that software support is as important as releasing devices, because people live with a phone after its announcement and launch. They don't necessarily go back and change a phone every time they want an update to a phone. So we'll have to see how that kind of goes, and we'll go from there. Stravan says, 4 nanometer, we're expecting better battery life and zero idle drain, which is a concern for Google services and Android. So again, keep in mind that it's going to depend on what we see from different devices or different manufacturers. But yes, it is intended to be more powerful, less power draw, but it's not less in the aspect of where it was in the 888. Keep in mind, it's less power draw, it's more about the architecture and everything running, and I don't think they're going to be able to control how services are running in the background specifically for Google, since we're able to manage some of those functionalities. So we need to keep in mind how that gets applied by the OEM and what do they end up using. The 4nm architecture is definitely beneficial, but I think the biggest bump would have been for us to go from 5 to 3, not 5 to 4. Because for them, again, they went from 7 to 5 to 4. I think the 3 would have been the biggest jump, if you notice like how the naming convention they went in. But I think at the end of the day, we just need to see it in more devices and see how they approach. Last year's, I think with the 888, we saw OnePlus being a little bit more, not necessarily forthcoming, but essentially they weren't sharing specifically what exactly was causing certain applications to run on the more power efficient cores as opposed to running them on, let's say, the prime core, of the X1 series. So we're going to have to see the approach. First devices I'm expecting, honestly, I'm surprised we haven't heard official announcement that Xiaomi is releasing the next phone already. They did have a little presentation from the Xiaomi CEO at the Tech Summit, but they did not do what they did 2 years ago, where they said we're going to be releasing the first insert device here. I think it was a Mi 10 right away, and they released the Mi 10 at the beginning of the next year of 2020. The Mi 11 was launched at the end of 2020, before even the next year started, but it was released in China at the time. So I'm expecting something like that. I mean, we're still, what, December 4th? 25 days left to go. A lot of things can happen there. Okay, let me see here. I think I'm gonna, hello everybody. Finn is in there, Finn Jacobs in there. How you doing, man? TK was watching the stream from my smartwatch, but sadly I couldn't comment. Dude, see, this is how you do it. You can watch the stream on your smartwatch because that's how we do it now. How does it compare to the Snapdragon 888? Okay, so Justice, I can't answer that question yet. I have done some tests on it, and I have some answers that I'll be able to hopefully share with you guys very soon. So look forward for that video early next week. And when I say next week, within the next couple of days, obviously, it's Saturday. But there's going to be conversations going on around the benefits of how does this compare to the 888. I'm sure everybody wants to know how this compares to the A15 and some of the other devices on the market. But at the end of the day, you want to keep in mind the reference information and everything that everybody's going to be sharing, regardless of the media and the outlet that you're looking at, are all based on a reference device. This is a device that Qualcomm put together to showcase all of their benefits. It wasn't a device that was put together by an OEM. So this is not Samsung's version, not Oppo's version, not Sony's version, or so on. So make sure you keep that as a way to understand the flavor of the conversation that was going on and where it's coming from. But we should be able to talk about that very soon. But yeah, for sure. Oh my God. Sam is in the chat. Hey man, Sam, hope you're doing well. I'm hoping you're having a great weekend. Maybe some good zucchini bread. I don't know, let me know. Would love to know. So Bifius is jumping back with the Gen 1 absolutely has to improve and on sustained performance. The throttling and the thermal of the 888 and the 888 Plus are reminiscent of the Snapdragon 810. So that was the biggest problem we had with the Snapdragon 810. It was released, it was known to have a lot of heat. In Qualcomm, in their defense, they tried to fix it with the next generation, but for the devices that were sold with the 810, everybody lived with that issue. The Snapdragon 888 has had a very, I'll say this, I think the Snapdragon 888 had was not not formatted, but it wasn't really handled correctly by the OEMs. And it's not because the OEMs were not doing their job, it's because I think they anticipated initially as something more of the architecture and the performance of the 865 with some improvements. And the devices that we were seeing in the market, with the exception of gaming phones or like the Red Magic phones with built-in fans and so on, were so focused on form factor and design over functionality and adding better heat dissipation and heat management. I think what we've seen with some devices later in 2021 is that the devices started to get a little bit better as far as cooling, but again, that's much later than when the conversation on the 888, I'm not saying it's dead or anything, but I'm saying is most people are starting to look at the next thing, right? So the 8 Gen 1 of this situation. I think what we see with the next generation is obviously going to be very much focused around the same conversation. Is it continuing the same story? Did Qualcomm improve some of this? And how does the actual OEM tailor with that? That's going to come up with time because we don't have new devices. At this point, I haven't heard anything, and if I missed it, please let me know. any announcement officially saying when a device is being released. And once we start getting that, my hope is I'll be able to start reaching out and seeing maybe if I'm able to get my hands on some of those devices to kind of see what we're going with. But I like what you're saying, right? So Biffy's, I think you're on the point right there. Let me do I like that one. He's back. But the Sony Xperia 1 Mark IV improves on some areas. Selfie camera, under-display fingerprint sensor, faster charging. It would make it much more of a well-rounded device. So I'll say this: the selfie camera, and I'm saying this with a smile only because I think at this point, if Sony doesn't know that their front-facing camera is just not the right camera, it's not the right experience. I think it's because it's by design. I think it's more so because they're really focused on the device from the back as far as the cameras that we get from there, right? The Pro Eye is a perfect example why that is the case, because they created a specific accessory to let you use the big sensor on the back as opposed to using the front-facing camera, and that tells you where Sony's approach is. So unfortunately on that one, I probably would say probably not, but basically, under-display fingerprint sensor, we'll have to see. I don't know realistically if they're able to do that with a 4K panel that they're trying to shoot with. Because keep in mind, we're up to 4K 120 right now. So I want to say I don't mind having the fingerprint sensor on the side because most of the controls are on that same area of the phone, right? We have the camera button. The Pro Eye has the video button next to it. And of course, the 1 Mark III has the Google Assistant button, and then you have the volume rocker and the power button and the fingerprint sensor. It's really designed to make you hold the phone sideways. So we'll have to see. I hope that we'll have certain options, and we'll see. The Xperia 5 Mark III is still not available in the US, and we're literally almost at the end of the year. So I'm not sure if this is something meaning that we're going to basically just skip that for the US this year, but we'll see. Please don't give the Xperia an under-display fingerprint sensor reader. I will cry. Yeah, so I think Dan's with me on that one. I feel like for Sony devices, I feel like the side-mounted fingerprint sensor is a much better solution. Also, the reason behind that is because when you're holding the phone, obviously, when you want to unlock the phone, finger lands in a certain spot. Thumb lands around that area, and the index finger goes straight right there. Since we don't have fingerprint sensors on the back anymore, I feel like the side is better because otherwise I have to kind of hold it and just kind of keep doing it myself. So at the end of the day, for Sony, I feel like they need to stick to what works, and I'm hoping they do that and keep going with it. Let me see. Okay, so I am very back. Okay, so it's 9:50. Okay, we're running about 5 minutes. Okay, I definitely respect your opinion. Capacitive fingerprint sensors will definitely be one of the functions. I think he's answering that. Okay, so then says, can I ask why companies don't use past a year or two, basically flagship ships. You know what I mean. For their mid-range devices like the Snapdragon 865, 888, and the next generation. So typically what happens is, I think think of it like a run, right? So what they do is they produce devices with a specific SoC, they buy a certain number of chips and they produce them. When the following year goes on, Qualcomm is no longer producing the 865. So had they not bought a massive lot before and planned it, which I think to your recommendation is a very good option. Releasing an 865 in 2021 or 2022 as a mid-range processor is an absolute beast because that is still more powerful than whatever 7 series or mid-series insert SoC that you're talking about are going to offer, with obviously just maybe some features not available, but that's expected again at the mid-range processor. The 865, I think that's the furthest I would go, mostly because of the 5G connectivity. The 855 had a 5G capability, but it was limited to like one device in that year. And I think that was the, if I'm not mistaken, it was the OnePlus McLaren edition 5G on T-Mobile. So that was the only one that had the X55 modem or X50 modem. And then the other one was Sprint, but again, as you know, Sprint is part of the company now. So at the end of the day, I think that would be beneficial. I still recommend anybody looking to buy a phone in 2020 or even the current year, look at the last year's flagship. You are not missing out on 90% of the features. You're still going to be getting updates. You're still getting some great camera experiences, and you're saving yourself some dollars. It's just, again, finding them new is going to be the challenge, but then when you do find them, even if they're used in good condition, you're definitely not going to be disappointed. I really think this would be an amazing marketing process for them to showcase the horsepower and the benefits, especially as a Qualcomm, as a company, with what the 888 and what the 865 have been able to do. And if you keep in mind, just more of a reference, they kind of did it a little bit by doing the 870 this year. So in 2021, we saw the 870 as an SoC that was available for, I would say more like, not mid-ranger, but like mid to top tier mid-rangers to flagship experience, kind of a little bit. And Poco did that as well. So they used that in there. And I think if I'm not thinking, like Black Shark from Xiaomi did that as well, used the 870. And that's the Snapdragon 865 Plus in the same year as the basically up slightly overclocked and made obviously new with the 870 moniker, the new product number. So they've kind of done it, but essentially they still kind of changed it enough so that it's not exactly the same. My hope is that I know I'm with you on that one. I'm not arguing. It's more about understanding and going with that from there. I've still prefaced the face unlock on my Pixel 4 XL. Yeah, Sony look. What they did with the Pixel 4 XL was absolutely the best. I mean, with the exception, obviously, with the missing fingerprint sensor, I feel like this Project Soli was doing a great job of providing us the experience that we wanted. And I think that was partially why I had a hard time to kind of taking my SIM card out of that phone. I felt so comfortable with it, the better refresh rate, the larger display, everything was basically done at the right level, and I felt like that's the experience we wanted to do. What we see now with the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro, obviously, is a slightly different approach. But again, it's a good direction. It's a new direction for Google to move forward with, and it just makes me even more excited to see what the Gen 2 version of Tensor is going to look like. It's not perfect. It's going to get better. Software will start supporting it, and I think that's just literally a matter of time. But if you have a Pixel, like 6 or 6 Pro, try using Instagram and try to create Reels with it, or try to use Snapchat. The optimizations are built in now, and it's really functional to see that, as opposed to going to some other companies where even though we have the greatest camera, you still have to shoot your content with the main camera app and then import it into Instagram, because Instagram doesn't take full advantage of the camera, or it's not able to use all of the lenses. So I understand. I'm with you, Dan. I'm with you there for sure. So Golan Love is asking, is it supposed to affect the quality of the photography? Absolutely. It's not just the ability, it's the processing power and the throughput processing power that we're getting with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 is where the benefit comes in. The ability of shooting higher dynamic range content, the high HDR content for at 8K is one of their biggest thing that they were shooting for there. Is, think of it this way, if you're able to take that much stunning video at 8K, if your device supports it, that's the main benefit you're getting. You're getting better processing at the SoC level. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to render. The rendering process is still going to be faster. I'm talking about basically the post-processing, the AI algorithm, and so on. That's going to be depending on the companies that you're going to use with, and it depends if it's using a Sony lens, if it's going to something else. Leica's relationship with them is going to help them hopefully better improve processing, and I think that's where also Sony's approach is going to be. Where Qualcomm and MediaTek are known for their SoCs, Sony is known for their cameras, and 90% of our cameras, 90% of our smartphones are showcasing Sony or IMX, some type of an IMX sensor, and that's the reality. Sony is the standard. Even though they may not sell as many phones as the other players, they're definitely part of the conversation of almost every player on the market, the same way Qualcomm and MediaTek is trying to be. So it's a great way for them to kind of work together and showcase some of that, or leverage some of those benefits there. So Biffy is in there. I meant the fingerprint sensor Qualcomm announced with the double fingerprint support. Oh, sorry. Remember when it was announced, but nothing since. I think it's just been something that I don't know if it's a functional thing, but it's going to be something that we're going to have to see if it ever actually does materialize. Again, even with this year, they showed support for it, but it wasn't actually showcased. We didn't have any demonstrations of fingerprint sensors. So I'll have to reach out back to Qualcomm and see if there's any information on that. And hopefully, if I get an answer, I'll get back with you guys hopefully next week. Okay. Ooh, Andrew's in the chat. Good morning. Reading points. I will say having a more powerful mobile hardware is even more exciting for game emulators. That's the next there. The G3X for me. I'd love to see titles from the 90s and thousands of emulated on mobile with more powerful hardware. So I think this is a perfect segue to start talking about the Snapdragon 8, not Snapdragon 8, the Snapdragon G3X. What we saw with this announcement on this is not something. So I'll say this: we don't have hardware actually available for us to be able to start using the G3X. The G3X is going to be available at some point in next year. Right now, the hardware that we got a chance to play with is a reference device or dev kit going on to developers as well as publishers. the emulation part is the biggest thing. And I actually did ask the question. I said, well, what are some of the capabilities? They didn't have the specific answers. I don't think I was able to talk to the engineers behind it directly. I was talking more to the PR side. But I think the biggest approach that we have in here that we need to be excited for is having a dedicated gaming console, like a la Switch experience kind of a thing, right? But more specifically dedicated to Android games and emulation. Those are going to be the best benefits. The G3X main benefit here is it's very much a powerful chipset and architecture. 5G, millimeter wave, 1080p, 120, I think on this model. They can definitely go higher depending on the system that they want. But it was better cooled, it was better managed, so it's intended to be pushed a little bit more, and emulators can definitely run on it much, much better. It supports SD cards, a headphone jack, and it has so much more options for us to be able to enjoy content on it, because you can also watch movies on it. It's front-facing speakers faced directly to you, and it does support Snapdragon sound, so better audio quality. I don't think they said anything about Bluetooth LE, but at least with traditional Bluetooth, we should be able to at least expect, lossless audio, better audio performance when we're listening to content, and gaming. Reduced latency when you're playing games is also one of the biggest things for Snapdragon sound that they were talking about. But I'm with you, Andrew. Definitely very, very nice. Okay, so Sarvan's actually saying the bad thing with Android is that hardware is so damn good, software can't match it, and it struggles. Optimizations of software is an important on Android like iOS. No, absolutely. I think it's basically part of the concern that were the issues that we've had, really, right? It's a different version of Android because it's skinned differently on every device that you pick up. Google used to be referred to, or the Pixel line used to be referred to as the stock Android experience. But keep in mind, that's still somewhat of a lighter skin on top of AOSP Android, which essentially is the true vanilla version of Android, which still exists. And now with Material You, even Google has more of a distinctive look to actually differentiate themselves more. I'm still interested to see how does Android 12 actually translate over on Sony devices, since Sony typically doesn't really modify much over what Pixel used to provide. They provide us obviously some optimizations, but the looks of the device look and run still pretty much the same experience. So we'll have to see. Let me see here. Have you heard anything about the HMD statement on the Nokia 9 peer review regarding dates? Unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, not yet, Finn. I haven't actually been digging too much into the Nokia 9, but I'll have to see if I can find out some more information on that one. But no, not yet on that one. Yeah, I figured it was saying updates. Tech for your needs. Hey, man. Hope you're doing well. Mad. Sign mounted and rear. Sounded it and rear mounted buttons should be better than, yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like buttons are always going to be a much better experience. Again, I realize that side mounted may not be for everybody, but it's kind of the same thing where like some people like the fingerprint sensor on the back, and some people enjoy it on the front. It's just that with the front fingerprint sensor, it's something to keep in mind that there's so many technologies available there, and you always have it under the display. So ultrasonic, be it basically just normal. Again, it's going to be a different experience on every device. I feel like side-mounted ones are much faster. Like with the S20, no, that's the S10 series. They released the S10 Plus and the S10, the S10 Plus and I don't want to call it the S10 Ultra. The Plus, the two higher models of the S10 had a in-display fingerprint sensor. But the S10e did a much better job because it had a side-mounted fingerprint sensor. And I feel like Sony's doing it right. Sorry here. Then let me see here. Good. The Android Bay, do you think Tensor chips will be sustained by Google in further phones, or would they run back to Qualcomm since their new gen seems really promising? So I think the direction that Google did was a very specific direction right now. They're hitting their higher end specific market. Keep in mind, in the same year, even though we had the Tensor on the 6 and the 6 Pro, we didn't have it on the 5A, not the 5A. The 5 series still had Qualcomm. The reality is we don't know if Google's going to try to bring in, more of a mid-tier to low budget end. So I think that relationship isn't entirely severed. But what we're seeing right now is I think Google's approach to saying we want to control the conversation entirely. The way they did it and the success and the excitement that they got around Tensor definitely makes me believe that it's going to be continuing, and it's going to be something that they can use with the next generation of the processors. So the Pixel 7, the 7 Pro, more than likely will feature Tensor. Are they going to be able to provide us with a Tensor approach that is more mid-range processing level? That's going to be something that we'll see how 2022 does. There's a good chance that that'll be the year for them to experiment, but we want them to keep improving. We want them to keep providing us a better experience. and maybe better optimizations by year 2 in 2022 with Tensor. If they're able to provide us this now, we'll be able to see that hopefully next year. So we'll have to see how that goes. How does it compare to the Dimensity 7000? There's no 7000. Okay, so Jimmy Fire Dragon, I think what he meant to say is the 9000 and the 900 and the Exynos 2100. Right now, I can say this. Dimensity 9000 still doesn't exist. On paper, we're able to basically make some draws and conversations, and I'll try to address that in my comparison video or in my benchmarking video that I'm going to push out for you guys. There are certain things I cannot talk about specifically, but I can tell you right now, it's exciting to see MediaTek step up to the flagship game, and it's also exciting to see that Qualcomm is still going to push more features into their SoCs, and I just want them to be able to give us better experiences and help provide a better thermal management story so that OEMs are able to basically start working and have better experiences. They've gone through a year with the 888. We want to get a better experience with the 8 Gen 1. So we'll see. Hey TK, how's... So, Matt, thank you. The trip has been actually interesting. It's been, I'm not gonna lie, I was very worried and stressed coming in, mostly because this is the first year I'm doing this on my own, right? I'm coming in, I have both the Arabic, the English channel. There's a lot of good creators, a lot of good help, and Qualcomm was definitely very gracious to allow me to be part of the show. The venue was definitely very nice, beautiful weather with the exception of today. I don't know why. But yeah, it's been good, and I appreciate it, man. Thank you. And I know you guys have been following, seeing all the stuff I've been posting. It's fun being able to go to events and be part of the conversation again. Virtual is absolutely great, but there is so much more you could do when you're in person. Those behind-the-scene conversations and all of the different things going on are definitely much more appreciated, at least from companies and for creators. So I'm looking forward to CES in another month or so. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what they offer. I'm hoping things kind of continue going forward. Sorry. My new shirt has a running string. And then we'll have to see how that goes. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes. But last couple of ones, MediaTek and Qualcomm have been great, man. Thank you. I'm back here now. Yeah, thank you, Matt Tyler. Everybody say thanks to Matt for being one of our big moderators himself, and Aditya, of course. And I haven't seen Aditya yet, so hopefully he's doing well. Let me see here. Davin Davis is in there. Hey, man, hope you're doing well. Sony doesn't care about about front-facing cam. Okay, yeah, I love it. Okay, let's bring Davin up. But Sony doesn't care about the front-facing cam. The cam, it's the same way as Apple. Don't care about right now. Right, you know, it's the right to repair conversation could be even a whole podcast itself. Yeah, no, seriously. I think when you think of a Sony right now, at least nowadays, the next generations that are coming up, understand that this is purely controlled by their camera division, the Sony Alpha department. Sony cameras do not have front-facing cameras. It's pretty much a one-way direction. So I think at the end of the day, if we have the accessory that we saw with the Pro Eye come to more devices, I think that's going to be the best experience. I think Sony needs to start not beefing up, but essentially, building the ecosystem around their smartphones to have better accessories, because I think that's the biggest thing with Sony devices. We always have to accessorize it. For the One Mark III and any earlier generation prior to that, I've always had to use external 4K displays. It's like a $300 display that I don't think everybody's going to want to buy for their device. Also, it's a massive display with a massive Canon battery that's sitting on the back, not functional for a run and gun type of experience. The one that I saw here on the Xperia Pro Eye, so again, Mr. Fisher, Michael Fisher here, it is nice, it's sleek, it's small. One cable goes from the Xperia Pro Eye straight into the display, and it powers it, and it runs everything there from there, and you're able to control everything. It's not a touch screen, but it's still very functional for me because you're using the grip. I don't know if I showed it to you guys in the videos that I pushed out, the Bluetooth grip that we have in there that works with the ZV-1 and the E10, and it allows it to be part of the experience. So you're able to actually control, taking pictures, zooming in, zooming out, and recording video just from the grip. We're even changing modes, like switching between different cameras. Just everything is functional there, and I feel like it's the right thing to do. I just want that on other devices. So we'll see there. Davin Davis in there. Does the Gen 1 bring back AV1 support? So unfortunately, did not hear a single word about AV1 support in the announcement, or at least in the details that I saw in there. Right now, the way I see it, I think MediaTek is the only one pushing forward, going in with that. And I'm almost tempted to say that it's going to be an experience that if you're looking forward, you're actually going to be gravitating towards MediaTek at least next year. We'll have to see how that goes. I think at some point it's going to be, I feel like it would be really weird for Qualcomm not to support it, being that it is going to be the standard. So I think for the most part, I think we'll hopefully see it. But right now, I did not see any AV1 support on the Qualcomm, at least on all the paperwork that I have seen. But I can reach back to them and see if they have changed, if there's been more statements that maybe I missed it somewhere. What do you think of the Snapdragon 765 for these days, 5G compared to the actual SoC? So the 765G has actually been proven quite well, right? We've seen it in multiple devices, and even in this year, we saw it again on the, Google still used it. I think as an SoC, it works great. It's capable of providing us like a vast variety of different experiences, even up to 4K 60 frames per second. But again, keep in mind, it's not intended to run as an 888 for the performance level. Is it going to be something that it will be beneficial to see in next year? So we'll have to see what the next generation from it is. More than likely, it's not going to be called the 765. Like I said, I think it's their moniker or their new architecture is going to be Snapdragon insert number of model. And I'm still trying to figure out how they're going to approach the variants of it, because they typically provide us multiple versions of that device, right? So like a 765 and 780, 785, and then we had 740s prior to that. How are they going to approach the break-off versions? Are they going to be just in the gens, so we're going to just see a whole bunch of generations coming up, or is it going to be in specific models? And we'll see how that goes from there. TK, the dinosaur that is the G8s, the G8 has the best of both worlds. Let's jump back. The best of both worlds. Secure face unlock, rear fingerprint sensor. Yes, absolutely. The dinosaur. The G8 isn't. You're right. It's been a while. It's been out for a while. I think, yeah, LG's approach on that one was definitely very good, but keep in mind that they did dump the entire ecosystem on the front-facing experience right after the G8. I think the G8X may still continue on it, but then the G series kind of pretty much was the end. That was it, right? We moved over to the V series the next year, and then we had the Velvet, and then we had the Wing, and then unfortunately we kind of got to where we are this year. I was really looking forward to early in the beginning of the year to when they announced about the rollable, the different options that they were going to talk about. I was really looking forward to start having a much better conversation about LG in 2021. But it seems like they're still in the tech industry. They're just more focusing on displays and different areas in audio. But mobile is, unfortunately, as you guys know, no more. Let's see what we have here. I think it's not. I think he is not reading live chat. No. No, I am reading the live chat. It's just what happened because we get so many comments from different options. I'm going in chronological order. So it's going older comments first to newer one. And I know the newer ones probably are sitting at the bottom. And I know, like, was it 9:32 here? And most of the comments I'm on right now are about 9:18. So about 12 minutes or so behind the live chat time. But let me see here if we can, let's just jump a little bit further. Jimmy fired option here. I do keep going back to my Pixel 4 XL as well for yeah, absolutely. Dan's with me on this one. The Pixel 4 XL is definitely a nice, the look of it too. I don't know if you have the orange one, Dan. Definitely looks nice. Let me see here. TK, will you be doing a video on the One UI 4.0? So I downloaded the One UI 4.0 and I've had it for maybe about a week. So yeah, I'm about ready to start talking a little bit about it. I will give you a little bit of a tidbit. It has not been as smooth of an upgrade for me as I felt like it should have been. And I'm a little bit on the fence if I may end up having to reset the phone after the update just to kind of see if everything kind of works out better. But it's definitely, yeah, it's available. Galaxy S21 Ultras, and I think the S21 series has it. And I think very soon we'll have the Fold 3 series will start having it, as well as the Flip. And I think that was the next approach. And it's supposed to be in this month. So if you have any of these devices, you should be able to have them. I did not install the beta on my main device. I installed it on the Fold. So I'm hoping to be able to see how that goes from there. Let me see here. HMD is going to make my throw a brick at them. Yeah, no, HMD is going to be very interesting going on. I'm actually also interested to see what TCL also has to offer coming up in the next year. Will they move up from the mid-ranger type of an experience? Kind of like the better bang for the buck. I also want to see what they have to maybe talk about at CES. Typically, that's where we start hearing about their new devices. Last year, they announced the 6 Series. I didn't believe it was as good as it was, and once we got the TCL 6 Series TV at the house, it's been a game changer. So, absolutely one of the best experience. Can you whisper it? Can you whisper it to use TK as well? I wish I can share some of that information. Honestly, it'll be very soon. But yeah, I'm really the conversation in as far as talking about the Snapdragon, it's going to be a little bit different. And I'm hoping not to make it too long of a video, but I feel like I have certain things. We're going to talk numbers, we're going to talk performance, but I also want to talk to you guys a little bit about my experience of going through that as well. So we'll see how that goes as well. Yeah, let me see here. Let's do that here. Okay, so then Xperia 1 Mark IV, 1 Mark IV can literally wipe Samsung next year. I think Sony's approach is very different. They're profitable now on their mobile space, and I think that's the biggest difference here, right? Their approach and what they're doing is definitely more towards making it profitable, making a better story, and giving people a better opportunity to work with the hardware. What we have now and what we're seeing now, though, is that they're not trying to gun for bigger companies. They're just trying to do what they do best. They're focused on their niche market, and they know that their consumers love it. Asia or China has been basically their biggest market there, and you saw how they're shifting their approach and release cycle to go China first, Europe second, US third. So this is the focus that they have. And I think at the end of the day, we need to appreciate that at least they're focusing on what they're doing and they're not forgetting about the markets. In the US, we have 2 colors for the Xperia 1 Mark III, which is first to start with, but we still got an unencumbered full experience of Sony on that device in the US, although a little bit later, but we still got it, and it's optimized with 5G at this point in the US, so it's really nice. So, of course, everything is going to be interesting. Golan Levy's jumping in here. TK, I use Oppo and OnePlus devices in all series, and I must note that with the Dimensity processors, there are no overheats, crashes, or everything works smoothly. The Snapdragon 888 is warming up. So, yes, the Dimensity 1200 and the 1100, we've seen many devices use them. So Renos, Oppo, Nords have used them before. I'm looking forward to seeing what OnePlus does actually do and Oppo do with the Dimensity 9000. They're one of the companies that I feel like will benefit the most out of it because they are going to give you different flavors. They also release a little bit more devices a year than what we see from like a Samsung or let's say an Apple. Not to say Apple is going to be part of the conversation. So, yes, absolutely great. Some of the limitations that I think we probably will want to see how the Dimensity 9000 bring us a little bit better improvements is obviously better codec or better support for higher frame rates, and as well as like 4K 60 frames per second, maybe better also support on the front-facing camera experience. 8K, I think it's a very finicky experience yet. It's not that it's not functional. It's just I feel like it's not shareable. When you shoot something in 8K, let's say 8K HDR and whatever the content that you're shooting with, and you're sending it to somebody, you're not sending them the native file. You're going to send them a compressed version of that file. And whatever they're getting is not going to be the same experience. So it makes it a little bit more, the question is, would you want to shoot in 8K and fill up your storage right away? Or, basically still use 4K 60, I think, as a better medium with the H.264, as opposed to even if you want to switch over to H.265 for better optimization, smaller file format. I think that's the better medium. Shoot everything in 4K 60 if you can. 4K 30 would be still good. And I think that's what I want to see from the Dimensity 9000. Just give us more flexibility. And of course, they're supporting the X2, the Cortex X2 architecture. So we're going to be able to see 18-bit image processing with the triple ISPs. Can they do the same thing, the triple ISP recording at the same time? If I have to just look at the papers and the specs, obviously it would make sense. But it's also going to be something that Qualcomm, Dimensity, MediaTek and OEMs decide to do, depending on the experience. Everything's going to be tailored, and again, this is the exciting part. We get to see a sneak peek of what 2022 is offering, but we still need to see the hardware. So let me see what we have here. Okay, let me see here. Okay, I'm going to jump over. I'm going to try to jump a couple of things in here just to kind of get us somewhat relevant. S-Pen back, right hand side. Okay. So I see that Dominic is jumping back. So Biffy is in there. CES. Let me see here. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to touch the microphone there. I just want more tablet optimizations for the Fold. Absolutely. I think Samsung needs to give us better optimization. They need to improve the experience and treat it like an experience as it's supposed to be. Now, 12L is supposed to give us a little bit more better optimizations for tablets, but again, or that form factor. I'm not sure if Samsung's going to implement that and give us that much benefit here with those. CES, maybe I'll be there. Matt, dude, if you're there, we'll rock the whole thing. That's going to be the best way. Always going to be the best experience. Let me see here. TK. Okay. So Dominic's jumping back here. Asia has the purple and the green color 4 for the Xperia 1 Mark III. It looks like Sony is focusing more on Asia, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Absolutely. One of the biggest things that we saw where we saw all of that content and everything kind of showing up in the Chinese markets But again, I think to a certain point, and I'm not sure if this is true, but you guys can let me know. I feel like in the Asian market, the Sony brand is still being used as a flex, right? Having a Sony smartphone, something to that powered by Sony, well, I guess it's a Sony smartphone in its entirety. It's now unique. You know that if you're walking around, you see somebody holding an Xperia, you know that's an Xperia. There's no other phone that still looks that thin and with that architecture on the back that gives us the same experience. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. But yeah, China's first, everybody kind of follows. But you know, I don't think they're forgetting everybody. I wish we were just on the same timetable. But keep in mind also that they produce content, or at least devices, in a much smaller batch based on projected sales. So the US gets a smaller batch, the European market gets a little bit bigger batch because there's a little bit more variations there. But again, it's all on word of mouth experiences, and content creators like myself and Quan that cover Sony devices are very passionate about them. So the One Mark III definitely came with me, and again, you know exactly how it is. The One Mark II carried me over to the One Mark III, and there's the experience just in gaming alone. So I would love to see a gaming rig, like something powered with a G3X from Sony in 2022, because I feel like they have so much power and so much influence over the display technology that I don't think anybody else can touch them. Like putting out a 4K 120 hertz gaming rig with the controls and the G3X powered with better cooling and faster charging, it's going to be crazy. So we'll see how that goes. Let me see here, Davin Davis. You know what criticism of Sony I do have? Actually, I really wish they had a change lock actually indicating fixes. Yeah, they're a little bit almost as ambiguous as what Samsung puts out with the bug fixes and software improvements every single time they push out an update. It's crazy. We need better change logs. We need to know what changed, right? At the end of the day, it's not hard. They know what it is. Everybody knows what it is. It's in their change log. It's just they choose not to put all of that in there. So we'll have to see how that goes. We need a 12L on the Duo 2. Yes, same. I'm totally with you, Sam. I think that's partially what the main benefits are going to be there. We're seeing more devices using that function. I mean, Oppo released a rollable phone. TCL teased one. We haven't seen one yet, but I'm hoping that we'll be able to see it. Obviously, we have the Fold. We know Xiaomi has one. We know Huawei has one. The medium is growing, and we have more options in 2021 than we had in 2020. So you can only imagine what 2022 is going to be. We know there's going to be a foldable, obviously, yeah, not saying that, you know, the flip, but more of a large form factor foldable. And we're going to see probably even more players jumping into the game. I wouldn't be surprised if other companies come in, you know, if Oppo comes out with a second generation, or even maybe releases the 2021, I think it's the Oppo X 2021 as an actual device. Because it was actually, in the way it's been marketed or everything, it's been basically just as a test demo. So people had access to it through their PR contacts, but it was never available in the store. So I want to see some of those options, and I want to see the benefit of 3 years of hardware and software optimizations. But 12L will be the one that we get there from there. At least we'll start from there. I picked up a mirror gray Xperia 1 Mark II for £100 from a friend. What? That was okay. That is it. So if I'm not mistaken, I want to say the mirror gray. I think you told me, Matt. That was I think it was on E or on 3. Did I say E? Yeah, it's on. It was either on 3. It's one of the carrier versions, right? Because I think you sent me a picture of that a while back, and yeah, that'll be interesting. Let me see here, Matt Tyler. Nice. Okay, I'm somewhat at the end of the stream of questions. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the other options as well. So the G3X, hopefully, and I really need that to happen, I am going to be bugging Qualcomm as much as possible to try to find out who is going to be working at it, to start looking at hardware. I'm hoping CES will have some hardware for us to also look at. It would not be surprising for me to see this, I guess, this development kit at the Razer booth on the show floor. So I want to be able to go check it out and see what they've done and what improvements it would have had maybe received since the time I've seen it here the last couple of days. But I do want to see more devices like that on the market, better emulation support, better hardware, and of course, better experiences. Taking it away from the phone and having to provide a phone that does everything at that gaming experience, but still hold a normal phone device experience out. Just showcase it, and hopefully the main benefits from the G3X will bounce back to the standard 8 series or whatever other generation of SoCs that we're looking at. The 8C, and I meant to say the G3X, not the 8CX, because I'm going to talk about the 8CX now. So the 8CX is, it's definitely an improvement. Gen 3 is coming out. Mobile computing, always on connected, ARM-based computing, running Windows 10 and Windows 11, more than likely Windows 11. It's a little bit of a mixed story right now. I'm excited to see that they're progressing and providing us better optimizations, better power management. But at the end of the day, it's also kind of something we talked about on Thursday with Juan and Josh. It's not something that we have 100% full trust that this is going to run exactly like an x86 experience. What you're looking at and what you're seeing there is still somewhat of a combined experience, emulation on certain apps if you want to not, if not, well, if your app is not supported. But at the end, what is it going to be? How long is it going to go for us to be able to get that somewhere where Apple is doing the amazing job of being able to give us an M series experience that is mirrored by the Intel experience they had before. You pick up a MacBook Pro that you had in Intel and you run it on an M series, it's not going to feel different. Actually, it's going to feel much better and better performance. And I think that's what ARM is trying to do for us. They're really trying to optimize the experience to give us that better experience on mobile with the optimizations of ARM being low power consuming as well as longer battery life. So those are the things that we need to approach. And I feel like we're getting there, but we're like maybe a little bit more, like almost a little bit more to kind of get the conversation going. So that's my hope for the 8CX. The G3X, absolutely going to be a great experience, and I'm pretty sure whomever releases the first device is going to sell out like hotcakes. Because if the Steam Deck did as well as it did, where it's trying to bring us desktop experience games on a mobile experience, but they got pushed back a little bit, think of what a mobile device that is intended to be in a smartphone, but again, upgraded and running dedicated hardware for better cooling, charging, and all of that stuff can do for us on Android. Because at the end of the day, I think Android as an ecosystem has become so flexible that we can actually use it and optimize the experiences. And also supports, by the way, 4K 60 frames video output with the HDMI. So playing video games like this and hooking it up to, like say, a large TV, a 45 or a 50-inch TV, it's just going to change the experience absolutely to a much better experience. You have controllers, everything stays the same, it's familiar, and it's mobile, and it's always on connected as well. So yeah, definitely very, very nice. Gary's back. Thank you. Hope you guys are doing great. But yeah, so I think that was the biggest thing for me, obviously, as you saw. Not much else kind of got posted on the channel or any of the socials this week other than that. I did get a chance to play a little bit with a Leica 1 camera. This is a UK-based camera that was, and actually I think Japan as well. It's just Japanese. The device I had some Japanese on it. I'm very surprised to see what a Leica camera can do. And the approach, the Leica science on a camera on a specific device. It was a single camera device on the back, very different than what we're used to seeing when it comes to hardware. It has a magnetic clamp on the top of it, and it really felt like very much like a unique experience. Took some pictures of it. I took some pictures of Tom, the tech chap. If you guys, I'm sure you guys know him. John Rettinger from John Rettinger as well, and everybody really enjoyed the content from it. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to spend with it other than maybe about 10 minutes or so. I got my pictures off of it, so I think I'll do that. I'll post those pictures as soon as the live stream is over. I'll share those with you guys, and of course, it's going to be good. I actually came to the office today. Oh yeah, by road of watching the Disney Plus documentary on the Beatles tonight. Nice, nice. So with that being said, I do want to I know we're kind of at an hour and 12 minutes, roughly around the time. So I'm actually interested to see how we're going to be able to do the TKception. I do have a second display, so we'll see if we'll be able to do it there. So we're about to start doing the TKception in the show. Obviously, that's not going to go away. Starting next week, the show is going to be rebranded as the Android Bay. So it's going to be episode 100 is basically going to be episode 1 per se for the Android Bay. And then we're going to go forward from there. And it is going to be hosted on the other channel. I'm going to try my best to keep it at least, advertise or push out to everybody and let everybody know where the channel is. And I'm hoping by then, if we do reach 100 subscribers, we'll have the better name on it, which is, I think, is the goal. I'm trying to get it there. The home for the podcast is mostly just so that it, as you guys know, Juan did that as well. He's using Twitch. I chose to keep it as a separate channel and just let it grow on its own. And it's still actually going to be producing content over on Twitch as well. I'm not sure if I'm changing the Twitch channel to be the Android Bay, or it's just going to stay as TK Bay. But I will say this, everything that's been going on this week and 2 weeks ago with the announcement of MediaTek is indicating a lot of improvements from both companies in the SoC market. And the involvement and the commitments from companies that we're going to start to see, like Xiaomi again, was on stage with Qualcomm. At the event with MediaTek, I had Xiaomi, Oppo, OnePlus devices, Vivo devices, all sitting at the table there. So there's indication of what companies are going to be playing this game, what they're going to be doing. I still think MediaTek has a good opportunity to prove themselves, but it's a good start for them to jump into the flagship experience because, again, More competition provides us better experiences as a consumer. And that's the big thing at the end of the day. Google's presence at the event this week also kind of showcased that they're still working with them. I don't think Google's totally leaving the Qualcomm conversation. I think it's just going to be depending on the device that you're picking up. As Tensor gets better, we're going to see better implementations and better software optimizations for them. And as we see, hopefully, what Samsung's going to do, is there really going to be a situation where Samsung releases everything on Exynos and there's no more Qualcomm? Hard to tell, but I find it also to be very hard to be a story that they go with. But at least on the 8 Gen 1, I'm excited to see what they deliver. And the Dimensity 9000 will also be something I want to talk. Oops, sorry. I want to see what we do there where we go from there. It's the sharp yeah, no, definitely. It'll always be there. So do me a favor, start dropping in those hashtag TKceptions in there in the comments. And what we're going to try to do also as well next week is going to be that first episode on the Android Bay, but that's going to be also the week I announced the giveaway. I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to do it in a sense. Should I offer up a device or should I offer to cover a device in the market that the person is there? Because I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to make it a better experience for you so that I can save some money on shipping, which I can put back into the price of the phone. So let me know, think about it this way, and we'll talk about it next week. But yes, the announcement for the giveaway in the new episode of Android Bay will be next week, starting with the first episode there. So the new channel, hopefully we'll have enough subscribers and we'll be able to get it its own, the Android Bay moniker going on in there. But yeah, I'm here for another day or so, and obviously going back. Hopefully the rain is stopping, so we'll be able to get to enjoy a little bit here. I hope you guys have the good, really nice rest of the weekend. Rest, enjoy, and get ready for the next week. But yeah, with that being said, let me see if we can set it up here. I think it's, let me see. I think the comments in here are running a little bit. So here, Davin Davis jumping in there with TKception, TK rebrand Bay. As always, let me just jump in here. I'll bring it over. It should work. I think it'll work, but we'll see. You know what? Actually, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. Okay, sorry. I'm actually going to do it slightly different because the secondary display that I have here is not optimized right, because yeah, so this one's going to be good. So we're going to say share, we're going to say share screen, and here, let's do this 1, 2, 3. Come on, yes. I was off on that one. I was off on that one by a little bit. So David Davis, thank you very much for hanging out with us. Michael Berry as well, thank you very much. And Greg, as always, thank you very much. Big fan, big supporter of the channel. Dominic Wan, always kicking it with us. TKception, so TK Android Bay, TK Qualcomm Bay, and Super Saiyan Bay. I couldn't find my shirt. It's like, okay. At TK, last episode of the Saturday Morning with Tech, as he's mentioning, and hopefully starting next week, it'll be the Android Bay. Again, continuing the same conversation. It's pretty much just a rebranding. And for the lack of a better word, better searchability. I'm hoping to find and maybe allowing the conversation to even expand with more and more people to be able to find us easily on the socials. Matt Tyler, the man, the myth himself, Call of Duty God War at that point, me on Android Bay. The big thing I would probably see, mod me on Android Bay, absolutely, man, for sure. I forgot about that one. You're right. I need to set you up, set Aditya as well. And Aditya, hey, Aditya is with us. So yeah, for sure, I'll set that up and I'll put that in there. Chemi Torres, always, thank you. Gracias, mi amigo. Aditya, the man, the Mr. Cumberbatch of our channel. I will always say that. The TKception, TK Making Connections Bay, always. So many good, like the behind the scenes stuff is the best part of this event. I'll say that absolutely. Connecting with people, meeting up with people, reconnecting with people was the best part as well. And Josh and I got a chance to hang out a little bit too. So as you guys saw, he jumped in on the live stream with Juan and I. Unfortunately, he's already left. That's why he's not on the show here. Otherwise, I would have totally invited him. But for sure, kicking it with us. Marilyn, thank you very much. Aditya, Gary the Fireman, Finn Jacobs as well. As always, TK, the Androidception, the TKception as well. Greg, as always, again, thank you very much for all of the support every single time, every single show. The reason why we're doing this show and this live stream, even when I'm remote, even when I'm traveling at events, I don't want to stop it. I feel like it's a great way for us to have a conversation on a Saturday and, just have fun. So with that being said, be safe, stay safe, take care of yourself, and I'll see you guys hopefully in the comments as well on Monday with the SGGQA, back on another episode of the Best of Our Week on Thursday, and of course on the Android Bay next week. It's been definitely an exciting week. Okay, take care everybody. I'll see you next week.